Hey everybody, how's it going? Stoudman coming right back at you, and today I'm going to be talking to you about a bunch of movies that I watched for Halloween this year. But before I do that, I just want to let you guys know that you can find Amazon links to every single one of the movies I'm about to talk about in the description below. And the thing about those Amazon links is they do help me out a bit. You don't actually have to give me any money whatsoever. You just go on Amazon with those links and purchase whatever you would normally purchase on Amazon. Doesn't even have to be the movies in question. And I get like a small kickback for it. Like we're talking like 2% kickback or something like that. So it's not a big deal, but it would really help me a lot if you would consider using those links, and I would very much appreciate it. With that out of the way, I had this idea to do this just big video talking about all these movies that I've watched for Halloween because, well, quite frankly, last year I did a whole bunch of movie reviews and they didn't get a lot of views at all. I got the sense a lot of people did not want to watch them, so I figured this year I would just take it easy, do things a little bit more simply, so I'm just going to do one video with a bunch of horror movie reviews. So that's what this is. So let's get things started off right quick. So to start things off, I will say that I watched a bunch of stuff from like DVDs and Blu-rays, just a lot of stuff that I haven't watched yet in my collection, some stuff that I have watched but it's been a while since I saw it. I went with that approach, basically. Yeah, there are things that I could have watched on Amazon and Netflix, and I have actually watched a few things on Amazon and Netflix as well. But I really wanted to get through some of the backlog. I wanted to get through some of the movies that I actually own and, watch them instead of just letting them sit on the shelf forever and never touching them. You know what I mean? Like, I bought them for a reason, so I decided to finally watch some of them on DVD and Blu-ray. So we're going to run the gamut here. We're going to start things off with the number 23. I saw this movie a long time ago, back when it originally came out, and honestly, I was not impressed with it. But I found it during a sale for like $1 or something like that, and I was like, you know what? Okay, I'll give it another shot. Because I kept hearing people talking about the number 23 over and over again and saying how much they love the movie, and I was just like, I don't know why, because it never really appealed to me. I watched it again, and I gotta say, even though I don't think it's as bad as I did originally, I think I know why I didn't like it so much, because I've always felt like numerology is bullcrap. Like, everything this movie wants you to take seriously in order to get creeped out, is something that I absolutely cannot believe in, do not believe in at all. I can't suspend my disbelief in regards to this kind of stuff at all. I just don't have the ability. So I just couldn't enjoy it. I fully acknowledge it's my own damn fault in terms of like the film itself. It's a good film. It's not terrible. I just don't like it personally. So yeah, there's my review of number 23. I will not be upgrading that one. Next up, I watched Innocent Blood, and I decided to watch this because I saw somebody on a Facebook they posted a clip from the movie, and I was like, oh geez, that looks awesome. I have that in my collection. I should watch that. So that's exactly what I did. And I gotta say, it's okay. It's not as great as I was hoping it would be. The effects are pretty damn cool, but that's not something that should surprise anyone. This apparently was like the follow-up to An American Werewolf in London. It was directed by John Landis, same director, and yeah, the special effects were pretty on point. They're pretty damn good special effects. I will also say there are a lot of needless scenes in this film with just boobs. Boobs, boobs, boobs. And there's nothing wrong with that, mind you. I say needless. I know some people are going to say, what do you mean needless? But regardless, they're just not scenes that actually need to be in the movie. They don't progress the story at all, is what I mean by that. So, do I not like that, the fact that they're in there? No, that's not what I'm saying at all. But, I just felt like this doesn't really add anything to the story. And the story was a little bit weak. Not totally weak, but a little bit weak. And that's probably why it never became like a classic kind of a horror film for many people. But I did enjoy it quite a bit. I'm glad I have it in my collection. I would say it's probably like a 6 or 7 out of 10 for me, something along those lines. It's a good movie. Robert Loggia just eats up the scenery and he eats up the entire freaking movie in this. Just hilarious in this movie. So yeah, great stuff. Well, maybe not great, but good stuff. Good stuff in this one. Next up, I watched 2 movies off of this set. That would be, I'll show you the back here. It's got Prom Night and Prom Night 2 on the back there. I don't know if you can tell, but yes, Prom Night and Prom Night 2. I had never seen them before, and I really wanted to see Prom Night and Prom Night 2. Especially because Jamie Lee Curtis is in the original Prom Night. So I watched them out this set, which at the time that I got it for like $1, I did not realize is on one disc. 5 movies. 5 movies are spread across one disc. Needless to say, the quality is not very good. At least for the first movie, it's not very good. But it was okay in terms of the image quality. And the movie itself was pretty good too. I wouldn't say it was something amazing. I don't know why it has such a cult following, because it's like, okay, there's nothing wrong with the movie, but it's just okay to me. It's nothing to write home about. So I don't know why people love it so much. I mean, Jamie Lee Curtis doesn't even have really a big, huge role in it, in my opinion. She's one of the lesser important characters in the film, I would say. So, yeah, I was kind of shocked by that. Not that that really matters all that much, but, of course, she's the one that everyone knows as the star, right? She's like a famous movie star, so of course she was in this movie, and they make her the headline name on it, even though she's not the headline actor, she's not the headline character in it, But I'm being a little too harsh here, I think, because it was a good movie. There's nothing wrong with it. I would probably get this one in better quality just so that I could see it in better quality, because I saw it in such trash quality. So I would probably get it again, but not what I would consider like an essential film. Just something that if you liked it, you might as well get it in decent quality. As for Prom Night 2, surprisingly, actually, even though my friend Skinslip discovered that it is not a true sequel. It was literally a movie that was made separate from the franchise, and then they bought the studio bought the franchise or something like that, and then they decided to name the movie after this other movie, Prom Night 2, in order to get more sales, because it's the sequel, but it wasn't actually a sequel to the movie. Which is surprising, because it actually kind of does feel like a sequel in some ways. But what I was even more surprised by is that I like the sequel better than the original. And the sequel, of course, as I mentioned, isn't even actually a sequel. But the effects in this one, in the second movie, in Prom Night 2, were freaking amazing. I loved the special effects in this movie, and there were so many scenes, well, I wouldn't say so many, but there were a lot of scenes that made me go, holy crap, I can't believe they did that. They took things in a direction you were not expecting them to take them, and I love a horror movie that can do that to me, because I'm a jaded horror fan. So anytime I see something that's like, well, that's not the norm, that's not what I expected to happen, I literally just kind of giddily laugh. I laugh like a little child almost, like like I just get so excited to see something new and different, you know what I mean? So I actually did like Prom Night 2 a little bit better than Prom Night. I don't know what to say. I just like it better. Next up, I watched The Undying Monster, which isn't a terrible movie, but it's not quite what I was hoping it would be. It's not quite as good as I was hoping it would be. It's I would say a halfway decent movie, but nothing that I would recommend spending a whole lot of money on. I got it mostly because look at this incredible artwork, right? This is incredible artwork. But I don't want to spoil too much for you. I would say if you don't want spoilers, then and you're really a stickler about it, then don't keep watching at this point, or maybe just skip past the next 15 seconds or so. This movie, which has a werewolf in it, the werewolf doesn't really make an appearance until like the last 5 minutes. So it's one of those horror movies, kind of like Don't Look in the Basement, if you will. Like, you know, them advertising it as a certain type of movie and then refusing to show you what they advertised until the last second. Okay, yeah. You got me. But I mean, as a werewolf movie, I found it all right. I didn't think it was fantastic. Me and werewolf movies, man, I am a stickler. I am really picky about them. I don't even really like the original Werewolf Universal movie all that much. I don't hate it, obviously, but there are aspects of it that I'm just like, this is not my favorite Universal horror movie. It just isn't. So yeah, regardless, this one was pretty good. It was better, I think, than the Universal Wolfman, but not by much. That's what I'll say. All right, now on this set at Death's Door, there's 13 horror movies on it. On this set, I managed to find two movies that I wanted to watch. The first one is called Funeral Home, and I don't believe it's available on any other. It might be available on one old DVD, and I don't even think it is though. I think it's only available on like VHS or something like that. And in fact, the copy on here is from a VHS print. It's terrible. It's a terrible print, but regardless of that, I still watched it, and I still actually really enjoyed it. It reminded me a lot of Psycho in a lot of ways. So the story, for those who may want to know, is essentially starts out as they are converting this family is converting a funeral home into a bed and breakfast. I know, right? Just the perfect bed and breakfast, at least for people like you and me. But, you know, for regular people who are the type of people who go to bed and breakfast, it's kind of a strange choice, right? But, you know, it works in this movie. They make it work. They've got a story that it makes sense in the context of the film. And, of course, strange things start happening. But I won't go any further than that because I don't want to spoil the movie, really. All I will say is that it was surprisingly a good movie. It was surprisingly fun. I would say it's like a 6 out of 10. I would not say 7 out of 10. I think maybe if I could get a better print of it, if I can get a print of it that, you know, you could actually see things, see what's going on half the time, which sometimes you can't because of how bad the print is of this, I would probably like it a little bit better. But as is on this set, I had to give it like a 6 out of 10 because I liked certain aspects of it. I feel like it's a pretty good horror movie, all things told. Definitely underrated and something that's just been forgotten, which is why I love these kinds of sets, because that's the kind of movies that they put on here sometimes. Movies that have been all but forgotten, that only ever got like a VHS release or something like that, and there's no other way to see them kind of thing. And this is one of those cases. Funeral Home, I do recommend if you can find it out there, you should check it out because it's actually pretty good, pretty fun one, in my opinion. The next one, the other one that I watched off of here was The Ghost, starring Barbara Steele, Peter Baldwin, and Elio Jota. Jota, maybe, I don't know. But regardless, The Ghost was one of the higher rated films on this set in terms of what IMDb had for ratings. And I just kind of went off of that just on a whim, said I'm going to find like the highest rated movies on IMDb on this set and watch those ones, you know? And that's what I did. The Ghost was not really what I was expecting, but it really felt like a giallo horror film in a lot of ways. And it wasn't bad. Again, it was another one. It's like, it's not bad. It's not fantastic. I'd maybe give it like a 5 out of 10. The story goes over like a woman and her lover end up murdering her husband so that they can steal his fortune or whatever and run off together, right? After they do the deed, so to speak, they find out that his riches are hidden somewhere and they can't figure out where they are. They don't know what happened to them. And all these strange things start happening. They start seeing ghosts and experiencing strange things, right? And I won't go any further than that, but it's a very interesting, almost Twilight Zone-y, definite giallo kind of inspiration film. And I enjoyed it. I would say if I saw that that it was available for Blu-ray, and it probably is, but even if it's not, like if I saw it available for Blu-ray, I'd probably pick it up. Even though I don't think it's a great film, I still liked it enough that I would buy it again. So yeah, and the same goes for Funeral Home, by the way. If they ever put out a different release of that's better quality, oof, that one I will buy in a heartbeat, absolutely. But yes, good reason to pick these ones up, even though they have really crappy transfers for almost all the movies. You pick these up because you never know what you're going to find on them. You might find things on there that aren't available anywhere else, and it just kind of introduces you to things that you wouldn't think to look for otherwise. So, very cool stuff. Next up, I watched the entire Wreck series with my good friend Skinslip. And it's been a while since I watched these movies, so I decided to do that, decided to take advantage of this box set that I got. I think I got it last year. Maybe it was even longer ago than that, but I think it was last year. I gotta say, one of the things that I really like the most about this series is just the setting, because it's not your average setting for a zombie movie. In any of the movies, really. I would say like the one that feels the least original is probably the last one, because you're used to seeing horror movies on a boat. There are a bunch of like ghost ship kind of horror movies out there, and there are some other movies that take places on that take place on a boat. So that's not a new location, but you're really not. I personally am not familiar with seeing a lot of movies, of horror movies, set in apartments. And the first two, at least, are set in an apartment building, and it's zombies in an apartment building, which to me is just a really interesting idea. Nobody's ever done that before, and it works so really, really well in these movies. I really enjoy these. And then the third one takes place at a wedding. Zombies at a wedding. That really, I mean, there might be one or two examples of that out there, but it's not something that's been done a whole lot, you know? So I really enjoy these, not just for the setting, obviously. I also enjoy the fact that that they're really good found footage style horror movies, or at least the first few are, and then they kind of drift off from the found footage style of doing things. And I also like the way the zombies are, because they're not just zombies, they're like demon zombies or something like that. So it's quite interesting what they do with the genre, bending genre, and putting the genres in a different locale than you're used to seeing. in these types of movies. So yes, very much a fan of all of the Wreck movies, even the last one. And I actually like how it goes off the rails a bit towards the end there. So yeah, very good stuff. And then I watched Needful Things. This one I got in a Blu-ray. I got it off Mercari, and I got it in a package deal, so to speak. I think it was came to like $7 or $8 or something like that, and that's pretty cool because it's a Kino Lorber release, so not usually very cheap. So to be able to get a Kino Lorber release for like $8, pretty good deal. I probably already mentioned that in another video, but Needful Things, it had been a long time since I had seen it. In fact, so long that I had completely forgotten practically everything in the movie. This is one that I do enjoy quite a bit. I watched it again and I was like, yeah, this is actually pretty good. Do I think it's the strongest Stephen King movie from the 80s/90s era? No. No, I do not. It is a movie that kind of drags on a bit too much. It's only 2 hours, but it feels like a mini-series event, one of his mini-series kind of movies, where it feels like it's 3 hours, is what I'm saying, basically. I like the concept, and I would love to see them take that concept and run with it and just do a different kind of horror movie with that same concept, a different story kind of branching off of this based on this concept, or maybe show like a movie in this future of future events of Needful Things, right? Because at the end, the main character says like, "I'll see your son in 2050" or something like that. I don't want to give too much away, but the bad guy in the film definitely is the kind of character that doesn't die. It's a monster, basically. Think of it as a monster. So I would love to see that. There are so many different places you could take this, and that's why I like it, is that it makes me think of all these different scenarios that could be possible to do with this film now, after the fact, as like a sequel or just a spin-off kind of thing. So yeah, very much good for making you think and making you come up with ideas in your head, but other than that, not the best movie ever. So glad that I didn't pay too much for it, but glad that I have it nonetheless. Next up, I watched Cabin in the Woods with my good friend Skinslip, and yes, I've seen it before, no worries. It's just it had been a long time since I had seen it, so I was like, I need to rewatch this. And glad that I did, because again, I had forgotten so much about this movie. It was almost like watching it fresh again. So freaking awesome. I mean, you gotta love what they do with the genre, and again, there are so many different places you could take this one as well. You could do the same thing again, where the god has to be appeased or something like that, or you could show what happens after the movie. you know, just the apocalyptic ending of the film, so to speak. And I kind of wanted to. I said that when the movie ended, that I want to see what happens next, And I am that way with a lot of movies. I genuinely want to see what happens next. And to me, that's a good sign. It's a sign of a good movie, is something that makes you want to see what happens next. And I wish that they would think. I'm just saying, you could take this into some kaiju places with the way it ended. If you do a sequel to it, you could take it into some kaiju places and make it pretty awesome, in my opinion. So, yeah, I thoroughly enjoy Cabin in the Woods. I think it's one of the better horror movies to come out in the last 10 to 15 years. When did this come out? 2011? Yeah. So, glad to have watched it again for the first time in probably like 5 years or something like that. So, yes, definitely a good one to watch. Highly recommended if you haven't seen it. Most of you probably have, though. So, next up, I watched Black Sabbath, a Mario Bava classic. And this one was quite good. Really enjoyed it. It's an anthology horror film, so you got 3 different stories in here. I believe it was 3 different stories: the telephone, the word lock, and drop of water. Yes. So some of the stories in this aren't quite as good as others, but they were all pretty damn good stories. Kind of reminded me of the Twilight Zone, which I feel like a good anthology horror movie. If you're reminding me of the Twilight Zone in terms of just the way the stories work, you're doing a good job. I love me some short stories of the macabre, if you will, and this one definitely hits that spot for me. And I love anthology horror as well, so this is just aces for me. This is a fantastic movie. A lot of people apparently didn't like the telephone. I love the telephone. I thought it was pretty damn good. The word lock was one of the other stories, and it's like a story about vampires that takes a completely different twist from what you're used to hearing about in the vampire mythos and lore. So very much enjoyed that one. A Drop of Water was a pretty good one as well. It's kind of one of those cautionary tales, don't be a dick kind of thing, you know. But regardless, that's the one that to me felt the most like a Twilight Zone episode. So very cool stuff. Highly recommended if you don't have this one yet. This one is a freaking classic, absolutely worth getting. Next up, I also watched Black Sunday from Mario Bava. I had never seen either of these Mario Bava movies, by the way. And this one, honestly, I didn't like it as much as Black Sabbath. I think it's okay, it's pretty good. I'm glad I have it in my collection, but I don't think it's fantastic. I don't think it's the best of Mario Bava's work, which is interesting to me because I feel like this is the movie people talk about when they talk about Mario Bava, and I'm just like, okay, but why? I mean, I guess it kind of personifies in a lot of ways the type of horror movies he does. It's got that sadomasochistic bent to it, and a lot of his movies have, like, at least a flair for the sadomasochistic. So I can kind of see what they're going for with that. Again, the story isn't bad by any stretch. It's really cool. It's really interesting. I don't want to give anything away, but yes, the thing that I feel like stands out for me with Mario Bava is just the cinematography and the way he shoots things is so fantastic. There are some aspects of his movies that are like that don't hold up in terms of the quality of the special effects and stuff like that, but they're few and far between. You know, those kind of scenarios are few and far between. So, for the most part, I would say, practically everything that he does in terms of the way that the movie is shot, the cinematography, the shot selection, the framing, all that good stuff is just phenomenal. It's film school style greatness. So, yes, very, very good stuff here as well. Even though I didn't like it as much as Black Sabbath. Next up, I watched It Came from Outer Space, which was another one I hadn't seen yet, and really enjoyed this one as well. Just in terms of the way the story works, and sure, there are a lot of tropes of the sci-fi B genre in this movie, but there are also a lot of things that they do in this movie that you don't really see in other movies, in other sci-fi movies of the era. And one of the things that really stood out to me. One of the things that stood out to me about this was the special effects, which there weren't a whole lot of really impressive special effects, but when you saw them, like what they clearly put the budget into, it was just like, it works so well. And it's like it makes you want to see more stuff like that nowadays, even though it does look a little cheesy now. It's still like it works so damn well and is believable enough that it's very impressive stuff. So, yeah, really enjoyed the special effects in this one, the practical effects. Of course, it's a great one if you're into that kind of stuff. The story is also very interesting, very cool stuff. So, very much enjoyed this one. Glad to have this one in my collection as well. Next up, The Ghost of Sierra de Cobre. So, this one was written by Joseph Stefano, who wrote Psycho and TV's The Outer Limits. And this was apparently supposed to originally have been a pilot for a TV show, but the TV show never got off the ground. So they used the footage from the pilot to make a movie. And I have to say, this one I really, really enjoyed. There were a lot of great aspects about this. There's just one scene, it doesn't give anything away, but there's just one scene in the movie where he's lighting some candles. The main character's lighting some candles, and he finally finishes lighting all the candles on like the candelabra, I think is what they call it, right? And he blows out the flame on the match, right? And as he's blowing out the flame on the match, he ends up blowing out one of the candles, and he's like, and then he lights it again. And I saw that and I was like, you just know when you see it, like, that was a flub and they just left it in. And I actually like that because it's so human. It's so natural. It's like leaving things like that in just adds a little bit of flavor, a little bit of salt, a little spice to the movie. It makes it feel more realistic. That this guy, it makes the guy feel more like he's human and not like someone reading a few lines, because here he is making stupid little mistakes like the rest of us. So I love when they do stuff like that, and that's the kind of movie that this is. And further, I will add to that this movie takes a lot of chances that you do not normally see in horror movies from this era, 1964. So the concept behind it was very, very interesting, and it's, even today I would say, it's not something you would see very frequently in a horror movie. It almost felt like a Sherlock Holmes horror movie. So very cool stuff on that front and in that way, and highly, highly recommended, because I know a lot of you probably have not heard of this, don't know anything about this. So if you are like thinking, what is this? Definitely need to get this one. This one is so cool. Very highly recommended from me. Next up, I watched Kill Baby Kill, and that might actually be my favorite movie that I watched for Halloween this year so far. The cinematography in this one, like another Mario Bava film, right? So, Black Sunday, liked it. Don't think it's fantastic, but I do like it. Black Sabbath, really enjoyed it. Felt like it was a great movie. This, I feel like, is even better than those. This one is, like, amazing. The cinematography in this one is fucking incredible. It blew my goddamn mind. It's that line, every frame a painting. Every frame in this movie is absolutely a painting. It, in fact, is so damn good that the cinematography gets so distracting that you can't even follow the movie that well. Like, I kept trying to keep up with the movie and what was going on, but I was so distracted by how great everything looked in the cinematography, how the visual storytelling was telling a whole nother story while the actual story is happening. And I'm trying to get it all at once, and it's like trying to read foreign subtitles and listen to and watch the movie at the same time. It's really hard to do. So this one actually, I think, would require multiple viewings, and I really think it's worth multiple viewings because it's so freaking good. The cinematography is just so amazing. Oh my god. So the concept is that the head honcho in this village, there's a bunch of people dying in this village mysteriously, and the head honcho, seeing that all these people are scared for their lives, sends for like a doctor, and this guy comes, and he is kind of like a private detective almost, but or that's the way he behaves, but he also is apparently a doctor, and he's trying to figure out what's going on in this village. and eventually finds out the story about this little girl ghost who comes and curses people, and then they end up dying through mysterious means. And he hears tell of how you shouldn't go up to this house or whatever, and so he's like, well, I got to figure out if that's where this is all coming from, is this house. So he goes to this house, he goes inside without, he knocks and stuff like that, but he goes inside and he's trying to call out to the owner, see if there's anybody home, and eventually does find the owner. But like, this house is set up like one of those fucking Scooby-Doo mansions, dude. It's like, there's so much stuff that just looks almost exactly the same. So many hallways. It's just like there's these scenes where he's going through multiple doors, and there's just like door after door after door after door after door after door. And it's so cool just in terms of the cinematography of how it looks. And then there's also a shot where he's looking down like a spiral staircase, and the way he has it framed looks so freaking menacing and cool. Oh my god, it's so cool. And that comes into play later in the film in another scene that I won't describe. But holy cow, this movie is so good. I love this movie. This is like a 9 out of 10 for me. It's a freaking fantastic movie. Highly, highly, highly recommended. My favorite of all the movies I've watched for Halloween this year. You have to see this if you haven't yet. Kill, baby, kill. Next up, I watched It, The Terror from Beyond Space, which was written by Jerome Bixby. For those who aren't familiar with the name, Jerome Bixby did The Man from Earth. He wrote the story for it, and I found out he died in like 1998, but then the story was used for the film The Man from Earth in 2007, about a decade after he died. Interesting stuff, I know. But, he was a good writer. But this was actually his debut not directorial debut, but his debut film that he wrote. And there are actually a lot of pretty good lines in this one, I found. Like, the writing in it was actually pretty solid. It was made in 1958, so there are aspects of it that are in outer space. The plot is that the man has gone to the moon, and mysteriously a bunch of people have died, and they think that this guy who was the lone survivor killed them, so they send a bunch of people off to... No, it wasn't the moon, it was Mars. They send a bunch of people off to Mars to catch up with this guy and see what his story is and what's going on, and then they find out that, there's a monster. So it's set in space, and there are a lot of things about it that, like, because it was 1958, we hadn't gotten to the moon yet. Space exploration was in the earliest stages. We didn't really know exactly what we were doing yet, and writers definitely didn't always know exactly what everything was going to look like. So there are a lot of things in this movie that make no sense by modern standards of what we know about science and about going into space and whatnot. For instance, there are people shooting guns on the spaceship. There are people strapping a bunch of grenades to a grating on the spaceship. There are people literally using an RPG at one point on the spaceship, which just does not make any sense when you think about it. It's like, so there's not going to be any decompression here? What? How are they still alive? How have they not blown a hole through the ship? What the freaking hell is going on? But regardless of those, minor inaccuracies that, they couldn't have known about at the time because we hadn't really done much yet. Everybody was just guessing at the time, or a lot of people were just guessing, and I figure that's what happened in this case. But despite all that, it's still a very fun movie. It's a very, I would say, actually kind of good movie. And sure, it's a little cheesy. It's a sci-fi B movie from the 50s. Of course, it's going to be cheesy. But it's worth noting that this is apparently the movie that inspired Alien. This is the movie that inspired Alien. I was shocked too. At first I was like, I don't know how that works, but then watching it, I was like, I was watching it with friend Skin, somebody kept pointing out, man, that's just like from Alien. And that's just like from Alien 2. And that's also what they did in Alien. It's like, oh my god, so much about what happens in this movie was taken directly to and used in Alien. So taken directly from this and used in Alien. So that's pretty damn cool. 20 years after it was made, they made Alien, and it was highly inspired by this one. So yeah. Next up, I watched Cube. I had already seen this one several years ago, but it had been a long time, so I wanted to watch it again. If I recall, this is the only way to get it on DVD right now. So I would love for them to release a Blu-ray of this, but it's not out yet, based on what I know at least. But this is a very interesting movie. Of course, if you don't know the story, like a bunch of people wake up, they find themselves in some kind of a cubicle system where they go into one, like they're in a room that's a cube, and there are all these hatches, and if you go through a hatch you end up in another room, and sometimes the room is safe to enter, and sometimes if you enter it you'll get killed by lethal gas, or you'll get sliced up by something, just all kinds of traps set throughout this huge thing, and they're all just trying to figure out like how big it is, how to get the hell out of there, how to survive. It's kind of, to me, a precursor. I believe it came out before Saw, the first Saw movie. I might be wrong about that, but I think it came out before the first Saw movie. That would make it a precursor to Saw, because it has a lot of aspects that kind of remind me of Saw. So it feels like a Saw movie to me, but set in a different kind of setting, and I really enjoy that. I really enjoy this movie. I feel like it's a great sci-fi horror movie that if you haven't heard of it or seen it yet, you definitely should check it out. And last, and possibly least, I think it is least, this time around, least, frogs. This, I know it looks interesting, looks cool, right? Frogs, the cool, like, logo and everything, but, this one is actually not very good. I'm going to just go ahead and say that right now. The one thing that really sticks out to me about this one is that it has, as you can see there, Sam Elliott. You may remember Sam Elliott from a bunch of different roles. Mainly what I remember from the most is from The Big Lebowski. He is the guy in The Big Lebowski who's sitting at the bar. He's got that big old bushy mustache, and he's the narrator, basically. He's talking about the dude, right? So that's Sam Elliott. We all have seen Sam Elliott before. We all know who Sam Elliott is, I would assume. And most of us know him as someone with a huge bushy mustache. A guy who looks something like this. In this movie, Sam Elliott has no mustache. He doesn't even look like himself. He doesn't even look like the Sam Elliott you know. It took me a few moments to even recognize him, and when I did, I was like, is it even possible that that's Sam Elliott without a mustache? And it was possible, it is possible, it's reality. So if you've ever wanted to see Sam Elliott without his mustache, frogs. But I don't recommend it if you don't like bad horror movies, because this is a bad horror movie. It's definitely one that's trying to play on a lot of the horror tropes that were popular at the time, and it's got this kind of a, nature fighting back against the people that are doing it harm, environmentalist kind of a approach to it, a precursor to things like The Happening, if you will. It's not a good precursor. It's not a good movie at all. The way people die is so stupid. It's like, I think there were a few deaths that were kind of cool, and then most of them were just really, like, you saw them coming from a mile away, you knew they were going to be stupid, and then they were stupid. Like, they didn't surprise you at all. nothing about it was surprising. Like, these animals that you know are not violent suddenly are non-violently somehow killing people. Like, they got actual live animals, not just frogs. They got, like, Komodo dragons. I don't think they were Komodo dragons, but they were like a type of dragon. They got iguanas, and they got all these reptiles. And they even got tarantulas and stuff like that to crawl all over people, right? And somehow the act of them crawling all over people killed people. I don't know how, but that's the concept we're working with in this movie. That's it. Yeah. This frogs are hopping all over me. I'm dead now. What? What? And that's another thing, though. The movie is called Frogs, right? Do you know how big of a role frogs actually play in this movie? Not very big. It's another one of those. It's another one of those movies like Don't Go in the Basement and stuff like that, where they kind of wait until the very end to have frogs play any kind of role at all. Frogs are just kind of supposed to be a menacing figure in it, and even though they're supposed to be menacing, they are never menacing because they're frogs. So it's very, very strange movie. It's very hard to get into because it's like you really, really have to suspend your disbelief in order to be kind of scared of things that, quite frankly, are not scary. So maybe it's just the jaded horror fan in me, but this is just, it's just terrible. It's not a good movie at all. I do not recommend picking this up in any other format. I'm definitely not going to. I got it for like $1 several years ago and then never bothered to watch it until now. And now I've finally watched it and decided, no way am I buying this on any other format. No way am I ever buying this again. This is good enough. I'm happy enough just to have this. And I feel like I don't even really need this because it's really not that good of a movie. It's not terrible. I would say it's like a 4 out of 10 is what I would say. But a 4 out of 10 is not something great. In my view, if it's a 5 out of 10 or better, it's something that you might want to watch again. You might enjoy a little bit for some reason. A 6 out of 10 is something you definitely want to have in your collection, in my opinion, just because it's like, well, 6 out of 10 has at least a little bit of rewatch value. 5 out of 10, maybe not that much. 4 out of 10 is at the point where it's just not really interested in this movie. Don't really care to see it again, kind of thing, you know? I mean, I'm sure I could be convinced to watch it again if my friends wanted to watch it with me or something, but other than that, like, if I can't just make fun of this movie with my friends, then I see no point in ever watching it again. It's just not that good. An interesting curiosity in terms of it being a Sam Elliott movie where Sam Elliott doesn't have a mustache, but other than that, not great. So yeah, that is that. That's the last of the horror movies I'm talking about today. And there were a lot. Yes, I watched all of these within the last month. And I'm going to be watching even more, but I figured I'd do this video just talking about the ones that I have watched thus far. This is just some of them. I got more down here. But wait, there's still more space dust. Ugh, look at this. There's so freaking much here. That's how much I've watched in the last month. 20, I believe, is how many movies I just talked about there. 20. And there are some I didn't even talk about, really. Because I watched them on Netflix and Amazon and whatnot, so yeah. Like, I watched Twilight Zone the movie for the first time in years. Spoiler alert, I liked it. I just wish they would release it on Blu-ray. Again. Because it's been out of print forever on Blu-ray. But yeah. Regardless, that'll do it for me today. This video is going to be horrendously long, but I hope somebody watches it because I've been told that people want to see my movie reviews. So here you go, a video with 20 movie reviews. Is that good enough? Or do you hate it? let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Catch you later. Peace.